Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This week we're following on where we left off last time on the Ouseburn walking tour. We got as far as Great Park last time, so we're going to pick up there. This weekend, got the metro out to Fordham and then picked up a Great Park again, avoiding the link road and anything that could go wrong there again. So we'll start there. So we find the River Ouseburn, and this is where the River Ouseburn flows underneath the A1. So there's a little sort of underpass and pedestrian footway under the A1, which Ouseburn flows through. The Ouseburn at this point is flown through the other side of Great Park. You sort of have an edge that's almost Kingston Park-esque, and then it goes into the original part of Great Park. This part of Great Park is actually my favourite. It's actually quite nice, it's quite dense, and it just feels like an extension to sort of Gosforth and that sort of area, rather than the new Great Park, or the other side of Great Park, which is a lot more spread out and a lot less sort of dense. So I especially like sort of the curved streets they have in the centre and that sort of thing. And obviously this is set in sort of the watershed of the Ouseburn. It's in this like sort of, I wouldn't call it parkland, it's sort of like, it's SUDs. So it's sort of sustainable urban drainage, but it's quite nicely laid out with reeds and footpaths through. So we start there and we walk along, and we see these lovely detached houses and that sort of thing. And then as the river Ouseburn flows, it now flows through a golf course. So you can't actually follow this round specifically on the footpath. You have to go off because these are all cul-de-sacs. But they're quite nice bungalows and properties that back onto the river. Just nice houses with the river flowing at the back of them. I think they did used to have a risk of flooding, but they've now put a drainage thing in, spread the Ouseburn in 2 parts, so it doesn't do that. But yes, then we the road and get on Great North Road. So this is the main road through Gosforth. Originally it's like the King's Road, isn't it? I think the main road through Newcastle, and it's what originally was the A1. This part is quite nice, quite pleasant. It's quite nicely spaced with trees and sort of detached, semi-detached properties on either side. So we follow this down until we get to the 3 Mile Bridge and the 3 Mile Inn. So 3 Mile Inn, I'll show you some footage here. It's this sort of big pub restaurant. I don't know why it's specifically called 3 Miles here. I think I was getting the bus once and I googled it is 3 miles from here to the city centre. So I guess it must come from that, but there's obviously a bridge here where the Great North Road crosses over the River Ouseburn. And there's a footpath here where now from this point on, you can sort of walk down the whole Ouseburn sort of uninterrupted. Whereas before there was no real footpath in some places, and obviously in Walsington we lost it, around the edge of Great Park we lost it, but starting here, you can finally actually just follow it and not get sort of too far away from it, which is nice. So we start and we come off Great North Road, some nice properties here and some allotments and that are in obviously the watershed. You just sort of follow this along the river, just some suburban development around you. It's all Gosforth, so it's all quite nice, and and then you have to cut through Whitebridge Park Estate. And once you cut through here, there's a little path out the back, which brings you not too far away from the Ouseburn again, as the River Ouseburn sort of flows through the golf course here, and you can't. So it's following around the pedestrian footpath that just skirts the edge of the golf course. And now you're starting to see a lot more people walking around here, a lot more people actually use this route to follow the Ouseburn compared to what we were doing earlier in last week's video. No major notable sights along here, it's just sort of nice footpaths following the Ouseburn. You're starting to get more in towards the city now, so you're just following along the river. A notable thing along here is the Hollywood Avenue and it's sort of GOSFORTH-GARDEN village. These are nice sort of spacious properties, a lot of greenery in this area when you come out on this village area. Some notable things is recently over lockdown, Newcastle closed a lot of bridges. These aren't the big bridges across the Tyne, they're like small bridges over the River Ouseburn or near Manners railway station, just sort of small bridges that are now being put forward as sort of alternative uses, as sort of cycling and pedestrian bridges to sort of make cars go the long way around and sort of encourage active travel methods, which I think is a great idea. and it's nice to see this one still in place, especially after we lost things like the sunrise cycle away from Tynemouth to Whitley Bay. And yeah, so you obviously cross this bridge that's now been pedestrianised, which is nice. It means you can just walk in the middle of the road. There's a lot more space for people to move about here. So yeah, here we come out onto Killingworth Road. This is actually where the metro track, which leading towards Tynemouth and that goes round. You come out on the Salters Lane, Killingworth Road. This has recently been done up. They've put a new cycle lane in, and I think it was Gasworks as well, and it was closed for absolutely ages. This is finally open now. It's fairly nice what they've done to it, and it's sort of just your skirt underneath the metro tracks, and there's a lot of sort of traffic obviously leading this way, and this leads to arguably one of the worst roundabouts in the whole city. I'm sure you'll probably know of a HADDRICKS Mill roundabout. It's just absolutely awful. There's just too many roundabouts converging. It's almost like two roundabouts have been placed close to each other, and then there's a bridge over the River Ouseburn that sort of connects them. So it's just a very constrained site with a lot of houses and takeaways and the sort of Brandon Villa pub all sort of pushing around this bottleneck for traffic. At one point I think they were going to turn it into one giant roundabout, but I think they've done some works on it now and they've improved it to sort of make it safer. But I always find every time I drive around here, I hate it. It's not a nice roundabout to come out on. It's just chaotic with people going everywhere, people not indicating properly and people just not using it properly. We stopped here for to grab a meal deal because there's a Sainsbury's local here. So this is actually the first little supermarket we actually have on the whole walk along Ouseburn. The Brandon Villa is meant to be a real nice pub as well. I've had recommendations to go there, but obviously given what's happening in the minute, not being able to go, so I'd love to go there at one point and try it out. So this point you go up Freeman Road, and along Freeman Road you sort of, as I said earlier, that HADDRICKS Mill roundabout is where the Ouseburn actually flows under. So you can sort of see this now, it's becoming a lot more penned in. It's a lot different to what it was flowing as earlier, sort of more spread out in farmers' fields. As you're really starting to feel this is getting really constrained in by all these houses and sort of development around here. But then, past HADDRICKS Mill, the river has a bit of chance to breathe. So we came up Freeman Road, and there's this sort of little skirt of a footpath to the side. It doesn't start off as very much. It starts off very muddy and very horrible. But once you get down to this part of the valley, this actually leads into Jesmond. Real steep valley sides. It's a shame this path is so muddy. I wish it was like had gravel or something on, so it's a bit more all-weather use, because this is such a lovely walk down here. It's arguably one of the nicer parts of Ouseburn. You don't see as many people walking down this section, just because it's not as well sort of trafficked. So we come along here and sort of the lovely scenery, the rocks and everything, vines growing up the trees, and then we come to the first bridge. This is Castle Farm Road, where this bridge lies. I believe this is another one of the bridges, as I said earlier, been pedestrianised. This was always horrible if you're trying to cycle from Matthew Bank onto Castle Farm Road, because it was up a steep hill, and it like zigzags in itself. Cars would just come speeding around the corner and you'd be struggling to get up the hill, and they'd just come up right behind you, and it sort of just wasn't very pleasant at all. It does mean traffic has to go around to HADDRICKS Mill, but I don't think this should be a cut through in the first place, because this is a very old bridge and it's quite. And under Castle Farm Road, you can get under the bridge. There's a little tunnel underneath that then brings you out into what people would actually call now sort of Jesmond. Jesmond was the land was owned by Lord Armstrong. This used to be sort of his backyard, and he had his house here and his banqueting hall and all these things he obviously used to own. So Armstrong had the massive Armstrong Works down the Tyne, out in the Metro Centre, but on Newcastle side, and they built tanks, warships and that sort of thing. So we obviously made a massive amount of money from this. I guess you could say it's one of the founding industrialists of Tyneside. But yeah, so this was his own property, which he eventually gave to the city, and created this lovely park. So if you've not been to Jesmond, go. It's like an urban oasis. You don't feel like you're in the city. So in the Deane, there's a number of bridges, waterfalls. All the waterfalls and that are man-made. They were made using dynamite to sort of create this pleasure grounds. I believe you actually used to have to pay a fee. I'm talking when this first opened in some point in the 19th century. But you had to pay a fee to come visit the park when it first opened. Obviously now it's a free park and anyone could walk through. The main features are sort of stepping stones. There's just a Jesmond Falls, which is the main waterfall. There's here like us climbing on top of it. The old mill, which was a water mill, I think it was even occupied as a house even as late as the early 20th century. I think but it's been left into ruin ever since then. So you can cross this lovely bridge here, and this is when you get into what's the picnic area. So you've got some old picnic area toilets. I'm not sure if these are ever open. I personally haven't seen them open it, but I don't know, maybe I'm not looking at the right times, maybe I'm going at weird times. If someone knows that, that'd be great. And you get some picnic area and sort of picnic benches around here. This is obviously one of the busiest areas of the Ouseburn Valley because there's obviously a reason for people to come to this section, whereas other areas aren't as sort of well trafficked. But there's a lot of nice walks around here. So then we cross the bridge again, leaving the picnic area, and sort of head down this sort of main route down the Ouseburn. This is called Red Walk, or I think River Walk, which sort of flows down. What you pass here as well is the Farmers Inn. This used to be a restaurant at one point. I'm not sure when it closed, but I think it's been the victim of several arson attacks and that since. But obviously this used to be a nice restaurant down the DENE. Hopefully it can get brought back into use because it looks a great building. And we follow it down further and the small waterfalls. It's important to note at this point in the river, you can see, I understand there's been a lot of heavy rainfall in the amount of time we went on this walk. The river is quite silty, and it's around here you have quite a smell to it. In this corner here, just really gets quite a smell because it's sort of sitting there waiting to go over the waterfall, so you can actually have a chance to like breathe it in more. And it sort of shows those housing estates nearby are doing something to this river. They are changing the quality of the water because what started off as a little stream has now got sort of a smell to it. And then other notable features, now you can sort of see the banqueting house of Lord Armstrong, obviously. This is in ruins at the bottom end, but and you continue along Red Walk, and then you get to sort of the main attractions of the Ouseburn. So this is what they were trying to do. I'd mentioned before that BFI film. This is where they're trying to keep all activity in the Ouseburn sort of in a set location to sort of reduce erosion and sort of damage to the rest of this sort of valley. So you've got things like Pet's Corner here, the Millfield House, which is now the visitor centre, and a cafe, and you have a play park here, and sort of, this is another sort of an open area where people can come and sit and like enjoy the Ouseburn. So we continue and we go underneath Armstrong Bridge. So this used to be the main sort of, I don't think it was ever called the Coast Road when it was open, but this is the main bridge sort of between Jesmond and Heaton. I don't think it carried vehicle traffic very long because it was designed for sort of, the rumour is this bridge was designed because Lady Armstrong always felt sorry for the horses went down the bank at the bottom and came back on the other side, so Armstrong built this bridge as sort of to give the horses a break, just for Lady Armstrong's sort of recommendation. But yeah, so we go under Armstrong Bridge. It's lovely to walk along. I think they have a market in normal times once a month on Saturdays, and then we get down to sort of Benton Bank. So Benton Bank is where the Coast Road used to flow, and in this documentary I'll probably include a clip if I can, but if not, what they built was the AAE Coast Road was then built through this and goes through a tunnel underneath sort of Jesmond Vale. So what I think about this tunnel, I think if traffic still flowed down Benton Bank, I heard it was quite dangerous at the time, and there's obviously a lot of traffic flowing around this way. So I do think it was a good idea to build this bridge. It is a massive visual intrusion in the Ouseburn, but it does allow safe crossing. Before, if it was Benton Bank, you'd be crossing at road level with a lot of traffic, and if you imagine the sort of levels of traffic that exist now, so it does make a lot easier access and sort of allows for you to walk uninterrupted through the Ouseburn, but the interruption of the motorway here is quite noticeable. So yeah, from Jesmond Vale House, you can sort of flow up through this door, or this little gap in the wall, up into Heaton Park, or you can continue along the River Ouseburn. So as I said, the Bluebell, I'd say best beer garden in Newcastle on a hot sunny day. That place will always be full, and it's a shame to walk past it on a day like today, because normally you just stop in for have a drink, and it's just a shame at the minute just to walk past that and not be able to go inside. You then see what used to be the solicitor's offices down here. This has been derelict for a number of years. I don't think the solicitors have operated in there for a while. But now there's some sort of, I wouldn't say work going on, but the area is sort of fenced off. I have a feeling they want to turn these into flats at one point, but it's interesting to see, because in that previous mentioned documentary, they were saying, oh, this is like the new uses being brought into the valley, and it's quite interesting to see this has now gone to dereliction and hopefully being brought back into use. We're getting close to sort of the end of the Ouseburn as its sort of natural flowing river, and we're down near there's a house around this area of the Ouseburn that was on Grand Designs House of the Year, just because there's sort of these houses on the top of Stratford Road and Stratford Grove West that they look 2 stories from the front, and then the houses go down at the back of 3 stories due to the way the valley drops down. But these houses have gardens that just stretch the whole way down the valley, and they're quite difficult to use because of the height difference. You have to have these like tiered gardens. So I believe what the homeowners did here was sell the house at the top, but somehow managed to keep the land at the bottom. And what this allowed them to do was build a house at the bottom, sort of looking onto the Ouseburn. So there's now 2 or 3 properties that actually do this down the bottom, all of real high design quality that is really nice to sort of make this flowing street at the bottom. So these, because a lot of the other houses at the bottom of their garden is just disused, because you probably use the upper top floor space near your house, but you wouldn't go this far down. And there's more allotments to sort of the north. The valley rises back up as the river goes through the culvert. So this is where the river disappears and it goes into the Lower Ouseburn Valley. As I said before, I'm going to do a separate video on the Lower Ouseburn Valley because this area has such a sort of different, I'd say vibe, different atmosphere to the rest of the Ouseburn. So I think it's a good point to end this video here. But yeah, thanks for watching and join us next time to explore the Lower Ouseburn Valley.